Thank you very much, everyone. Good evening to all, and welcome to the pre-annual lecture dialogue hosted by the Nelson Mandela Foundation. I'm Lutfia Suleiman. I'm Senior Researcher on the Dialogue and Advocacy team, and I will be your MC for the evening. Welcome also to those who have joined online. I hear that there is a streaming link. Any who are in the overflow, in our Mercado boardroom, welcome to our dignitaries and our diplomats as well. So each year, ahead of the Nelson Mandela annual lecture, the Foundation convenes a dialogue to engage critical questions that are shaping our shared futures. This year's discussion builds on the 23rd annual lecture theme, which is enhancing peace and global cooperation, and it is part of a series of events that we are hosting in the lead up to the annual lecture. Tonight's program will include a brief opening from our CEO before we move into the moderated discussion with Francesca Albanese, and then a Q&A with the audience that will take us to 7 p.m. We ask that you keep your phones on silent for the duration of the program. We do have media in the room, so please be mindful of cameras and equipment. And in case you really need to leave, I'm going to ask that you please do so via the exit at the back unless you are in the first two rows. To officially open today's dialogue, I invite to the podium our Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Mbongiseni Buthelezi, who will offer welcoming remarks and set the tone for our discussion.
Ambassadors, especially Ambassador Jara of the State of Israel. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Of the State of Palestine, I beg your pardon. I'm not reading my notes properly. I apologize. Please allow me to do that again properly. Let me fix my glasses. Ambassadors, especially Ambassador Jara of the State of Palestine. Trustees of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, supporters and friends of the Nelson Mandela Foundations, colleagues, current and former, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and please accept my apologies for my terrible faux pas once again. A warm welcome to everyone joining us and to those joining us online for this year's pre-annual lecture dialogue. This evening's conversation takes place at a time when the world faces deep moral and economic questions. In an era of unprecedented global military spending, and let's just remember that $2.4 trillion were spent globally on military equipment in 2024. We are reminded that war and occupation reveal how deeply business and human rights are connected. The choices made in boardrooms and trading floors ripple outward, shaping and sadly ending lives. For our 23rd annual lecture and this pre-annual lecture dialogue, we are honored to host Ms. Francesca Albanese, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, whose recent report From Economy of Occupation to Economy of Genocide has challenged the world to confront how economies can either continue to enable destruction or evolve to nurture dignity. Her work asks us to think critically about the role of corporations, not only in conflict zones such as Palestine, but across the world, including here on the African continent. This dialogue is part of our effort to imagine economies of the future, economies grounded in justice, economies grounded in sustainability, grounded in human rights, and economies where innovation and enterprise build peace rather than profit from war. This is also a space for young people, for business leaders, and for all who believe that ethical enterprise can help heal rather than harm. On behalf of all of us at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, I encourage you to contribute your voices to this vital conversation in the discussion segment. May today's dialogue inspire not only outrage, but courage, accountability, and new possibilities for a more humane world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mbongiseni. So tonight, with much anticipation, we welcome Ms. Francesca Albanese, guest speaker for the 23rd annual Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture. She will be in conversation with Reddy Tlhabi. Ms. Albanese is the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine and the occupied territories. She is a leading international law expert whose most recent report, From Economy of Occupation to Economy of Genocide, examines how corporate interests and our economic system at large have contributed to sustaining and upholding the genocide in Gaza and the enduring unlawful occupation in Palestine. I also welcome home Reddy Tlhabi, South African journalist, producer, author, and former radio presenter. Reddy Tlhabi was instrumental in framing critical narratives for justice for over 10 years in her time as presenter on the Reddy Tlhabi Show on Radio 702. She's currently a presenter on Al Jazeera, and she's no stranger to the South African audiences. We are amped, Reddy and Francesca, to have you both here with us today.
Hello. Hi. Thank you so much. It's good to be with you. It's good to be in conversation with you. An introduction has already been made, so we'll just get on to the report. It is about building economies for the future, business and human rights. So when I think of a genocide, whether we're talking about Rwanda, what is currently unfolding in Sudan, what's unfolding in Gaza, in Palestine, I see combatants. I see desperate citizens fleeing, bombs going off. I don't for 1 minute think about the corporate sector. I don't for 1 minute think that there are normal people like you and I who are behind the businesses that support conflict or genocide. I also don't see myself in that conversation. Reading your report, I had multiple traumatic moments thinking about myself as a consumer, where I've taken my money, what choices I've made. And we'll talk a little bit more about this because some of the companies or multinationals that are mentioned there are going to shock you. And they will force, I hope, a conversation with yourself, a reckoning about the decisions that you make. So I'm trying to not confront you or be combative. I'm trying to create an invitation for all of us to engage with this report and center ourselves as well as citizens of the world, as decision makers, and as consumers. So with that in mind, why this report? Why did you put it together? What motivated you?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank all of you for being here, and especially the Nelson Mandela Foundation for inviting me to South Africa. And for gifting me with the opportunity to have so many meaningful conversations. I'd also would like to say and to acknowledge the challenges that everyone in the foundation, including the trustees, are experiencing because of my very presence here. What you're going to listen to is the reason why I got sanctioned by the United States, which is an abomination because I'm protected under the Privilege and Immunities Convention, under the UN Charter. I'm a lawyer who serves pro bono the United Nations, and at least I would expect I do my work based on the trust that the UN would at least protect me. And in fact, one of the most influential and powerful of its members treats me as, how did they call me? A threat to global economy. So this is what this report that is captured in the scene behind me did. And now, because I've not been silenced, now they're going to go after anyone who interacts with me, and I really beg you to keep your eyes on the Nelson Mandela Foundation when I've left the country, because they're vicious. This is the reality. And coming from a region which has been devastated by the mafia, I do understand how these people operate, because the mafia is not what Hollywood retells. It's not about drug dealers and street thugs. No, it's about a very sophisticated white-collar system where there is a collusion between the political system or ecosystem and the financial system, and they collude in order to protect each other. And whomever tries to denounce them get either ridiculed, ignored, smeared, or worse. And at the same time, as someone who's been dealing with Palestine for quite a long time, I realized that our understanding of Palestine is progressive. I mean, the Palestinians have denounced apartheid for a long time, and still it took decades for all of us to understand why South Africa had given the world the term of apartheid, but it fits very well, not only Palestine, but the other systems where there is one racial group imposing a domination over one other or other racial groups in order to preserve that domination, and uses inhumane acts as a tool to enforce it. Little by little, and this is how I decided to contribute as a special rapporteur to the understanding of Palestine beyond the cycle of the reporting of violence. And since the beginning, I've tried to draw the attention of the UN member states, but also a broader public. And this is the other part. This is something that I'm not forgiven for, the fact of bringing an alternative narrative about Palestine outside the United Nations, where even the stones know what the Palestinians have endured for over 7 decades. So I was saying, maybe if the large public understands what it is about, it's not a conflict, it's not a neighborhood dispute, it's an oppression, it's an unlawful occupation which employs apartheid to pursue ethnic cleansing of the little that remains of Palestine. So I've worked on a number of reports capturing broader aspects of it. I wrote 2 reports on genocide, and one was really an X-ray of acts of genocide that had been committed in the first 5 months after October 7, was brutal, and I said, oh, this is the worst report I've ever written. And then came another genocide report, genocide as colonial erasure, and then I said, oh my God, this is the worst report I've ever written, because it situates those acts of genocide within the settler colonial context. This is why the ICJ case that South Africa, sorry, I took it a bit long, but it's important. This is the ICJ case that South Africa has initiated is so critical, because this is the first settler colonial genocide that will ever be adjudicated. And so it resonates so strongly with the Aboriginal communities in Australia who have survived the genocide with great difficulties, but also the Native Americans in the US. The US is a country born out of over 500 genocides. 500 Native American communities were genocided, and Canada committed genocide until the 90s. So this is, and the wounds are still open. And while I was doing that, I realized, and that is also because I have an economist as an husband, so it helped. I mean, the Israeli economy kept on being very, very schizophrenic. So there was a part of part of the Israeli economy which was really suffering, and it gave the sense of how much Israeli families were affected, especially in the north, in the south. But then the Israeli stock exchange kept on going up How was it possible? And the other aspect is that Palestinians have often pointed to, and look at the BDS movement, for example. I've always pointed to the fact that there were private entities, businesses connected to the exploitation of Palestinian resources. So I said, okay, let me look at it in the context of a genocide. I had in mind arms manufacturers, and
logistics,
primarily arms manufacturers. Then I sent a call for submission, and I received over 200 reports. And it was probably the large lawyers, human rights organizations, investigative journalists, private individuals who had paid experts in order to collect information. So I set up a database of 1,000 entities. And it was not possible to pinpoint, even define business, it was not possible. So I adopted the definition of private sector, private entities, that includes arms manufacturers, heavy machinery, surveillance service producers, or the tech industry, goods and services producers, the tourism industry, and then universities, pension funds, banks, investment funds, charities. So when we had, I had a great research team supporting, so when we had laid out all this, we tried to make sense of it, and this is how I could tell the story, because it's about storytelling and explaining the system. This is what brought me to be considered a threat. This is Africa, this is Congo, this is probably Sudan. I'm not an expert on Africa, but I can tell you this is resonating a lot with people in the part of the world I come from, who connect the precarity of their economic situation, especially the young generation compared to my generation, and say, you know what, it's not just an act of charity to engage in Palestine, it's also about us, and I will explain. So I say that the private sector, can I stand up? Yeah. So the private sector contains...
That's the lecture, guys.
The private sector, I will be shorter on the next answers, I promise. But the private sector the economy of the occupation, what Israel has set up, just in the little that remains of Palestine that has been occupied. I'm not saying that this has not been practiced also on the Palestinians inside Israel. But in the occupied Palestinian territory, Israel has, during the occupation, developed two pillars: displacement, and so without the private sector, because it has used the weapons industry, tech surveillance, and heavy machinery to displace the Palestinians. You need to use force in order to, in order to kick out, to segregate an entire community. You need surveillance to make sure that they don't leave those Bantustans, right? And you need to make sure that they don't get into your space. So you need also to develop, to adapt, to customize those weapons. And Israel has tested for decades method of surveillance and even shoot-to-kill policies on the Palestinians. And of course, the heavy machineries, Volvo, Hyundai, Caterpillar, have been used to cleanse the area, to destroy villages, to uproot trees, and so on and so forth. And while this was done, replacement came in. So Palestinians had to be replaced. And for the construction of the colonies, heavy machinery was needed, but also there were businesses needed, and they come from abroad, primarily from Europe, to build the colonies, to build the electricity grid, the infrastructure that was needed to connect the colonies, the railways, the tramways. So you needed all these sectors. And then once the colonies are in parallel with development of the colonies, of course, the agricultural business developed. I had, open a parenthesis, I had a discussion with the Norwegian pension fund, which, Norway is a great country, friend of Palestine, right? Well, 10% of its sovereign fund was invested in 45 companies that I have investigated. If my report, which cites 48 entities, were to be read as a list, I would have failed. It's a system. It talks about a system. And so the examples I give are just to explain the system. So this is even tourism, Airbnb and Booking.com.
That's the one that traumatized me. I thought, hold on, what? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because
you felt happy with Amazon and Google.
Companies are so far from my everyday reality.
Yeah.
So as I sit here, it's December around the corner, I want to go somewhere. So you're saying I can't go on my phone and go Airbnb, bookings.com without thinking about this? How do I link those?
You use internet and you book your hotels and your trips without Airbnb and booking.com.
Yeah. What are they doing?
Yes.
What are they doing? That's what I want to understand.
Our parents used to go on holiday, right, without Airbnb. No, but this is the thing. Even the Norwegian pension funds used to say, yeah, but they just produce vegetables.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. They produce vegetables that should be produced by the Palestinians, not by the settlers. And the tourism industry is, look at Airbnb and Booking.com. They advertise, and all this has been, I gathered information, so they get, because then they delete it. But they advertise nice, splendid apartment in a French-speaking neighborhood. In a settlement, on stolen land, property that has been stolen from the Palestinians. And there are even Keller and real estate agents like Keller selling Palestinian property before even it's stolen. Auctioning Palestinian property from Montreal and New York. It's abominable what the system behind it is. So replacing the Palestinians, and this is not the end of it, because this system, which you see, it's a sort of it's an engine system, wouldn't work without the enablers, the universities, the researchers, research institutes, banks, pension funds, which have been producing the tools to maintain the Israeli economy. Now in Ireland, they have cut the selling, the purchase of Israeli bonds, but Vanguard and others have been providing credits to Israel in order to allow it not to nosedive as its expenditure was shifting toward it. So it's a complicated system, but not that complicated after all. And there is one thing that applies, to answer your question, it applies also to other countries, because the private sector has been the driver and the enabler of settler colonialism. Behind every conflict, there is a struggle for resources, and behind any settler colonial enterprise, there is this rapaciousness to get resources, and it has happened inside Europe before it became too expensive and pushed settler colonialism to become what it has become, an exported domination strategy. But so, of course, look at Congo. The question is, settler colonialism ultimately kills the right of self-determination of a people. And as it's true in the context of Palestine, it's true in the context of Congo. And the International Court of Justice has said the occupation is unlawful. So businesses, the very fact that businesses or any private entity is connected to an illegal endeavor puts it at risk. They have entered a red zone. They are already violating the guiding principles on business and human rights. And this is why they must be held accountable.
I just want to break down a few concepts, because listening to you now, it sounds as if the involvement of different players in this ecosystem is at multiple levels. There are those who are actively arming the genocide, producing the arms that are being used against Palestinians. There are those who are profiting from it. And then there are those who are participating in the economy knowingly or unknowingly. What I'm getting at here is that help us understand how your report makes categories of complicity, involvement, activity, so that we may locate the conversation on new economic pathways. What do we do with what you're telling us? When we leave today, how do we engage with your report? And what does it mean to disengage from this very overwhelming ecosystem?
Look, it's the engaging unknowingly that I would question, because we are not in the 1800s.
Okay.
We are in a time, we live in an era where businesses, private entities commit to ethical guidelines, and their ethical guidelines speak of specific principles. There is a global compact, there are the UN guiding principles on businesses and human rights. And it's interesting because then companies say, yeah, but they are hardcore law. Of course, they advertise on their website. If you look at the Italian oil company, I mean, if you look at the website, it looks like a human rights organization. It seems that their purpose is to protect the environment. And this is, I mean, I don't know how it's in English, advertisement, form of advertisement. And so it's punished under, in the Italian system. So there are other forms of, forms of responsibilities associated with it. But the thing is that the International Court of Justice has said that the occupation is unlawful, totally, and that must be dismantled totally and unconditionally. And it's as translated into a form of apartheid and racial discrimination imposed on the Palestinians. What else is missing? All the more, I mean, everyone is, I mean, as of January 2024, thanks to South Africa, the International Court of Justice has recognized the risk of genocide. That was this is what has triggered the obligation to prevent. At that point, there is no confusion. You need to disengage. But even before, frankly, there is no other human rights situation. No other situation where human rights violations have been systematically documented as well as it has happened in the occupied Palestinian territory. So the fact that these businesses, as some have replied to me, oh, we didn't know. Okay, now that you know, will you disengage? No. Okay, so you have to be held accountable. And there are two ways to hold these businesses accountable, and they're not mutually exclusive. And there is I think for certain businesses is the people's tribunal. You choose, as a consumer, you choose not to invest in these businesses. And for example, Volvo in my country is the image of the safe car, of the family car that protects you. Well, no, because the logo of the Volvo is associated for the Palestinians to the destruction, to the pulverization of their homes, because Volvo machineries have been used, like Hyundai machineries have been used to complete the destruction of Gaza that was not that was started with the bombing. So they have pulverized entire areas. So this is Volvo and this is Hyundai. So these businesses should first of all meet the consumers' ethical choices, but also they should be brought to court. They should face justice.
Are you saying that the companies themselves,
of course,
there must be a legal process against the executives, against the...
Absolutely. And it depends. This is why it very much depends on the legal, there are jurisdictional limitations. So let's say the International Criminal Court is responsible for individuals who have committed war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. So those who have provided the systems, the technology that has allowed Israel to become the killing machinery, to the Israeli army to become the killing machinery that it has been operating in Gaza, well, they should be investigated at least. And we have the CEO of Palantir on record when he was challenged in a public debate by someone who said, yes, but you have been killing my family, presumably terrorists, he said. So he showed, this is in my report, so he showed knowledge of what he was doing. And this is why you see the hubris of these people. I can tell you in other cases, it's really, they behave as if they were above the law. And this is what businesses have done all along. And states, with the legislations or the loopholes in the legislations, have created the perfect ecosystem for businesses to continue to elude their obligations. And this cannot happen. And there have been two moments in history that have been transformative. One was the Holocaust, after which this was the first time where we had the post-Holocaust industrialist trials, where, for example, those who had provided critical chemicals, materials to the Nazi regime were brought to court. Then we can discuss whether justice was delivered or not. But South Africa in South Africa, there was another momentum because of, after the apartheid, that there was this questioning of the role of businesses in creating this abuse and sustaining this abusive regime. And Palestine is offering the opportunity to become better. But this is where courts have to be have to function. So one is the ICC, but also where these businesses are registered, it's important, or where the CEOs, in cases, again, there is not one-size-fits-all analysis, but the 48 entities that I've put on notice, for each of them I have to each of them, I've provided a factual analysis of what they have done, and then a legal analysis, a legal assessment. Look, prima facie, you have been contributing to the violation of Palestinian self-determination and to facilitate annexation and permanent occupation. So just because of that, you are contributing to a human rights impact. So somewhat you need to be held accountable. It depends on the legislation on the country. But if, for example, Heidelberg Cement, a German company who has been extracting, he got concessions to extract. Extractionism is a super relevant story in this continent. Yeah. But they've been exhausting quarries in the occupied Palestinian territory. So they were renewing. In the time of genocide, they were renewing the licenses. Well, this is pillage, my friends. This is a war crime. So why the CEO of this company should not be investigated? Because this is the test. Again, we have not been able to stop the genocide, we have not been able to prevent the genocide, but we need to make sure that there is accountability. And this is why lawyers now are more needed than ever. Let's give meaning to this wonderful profession.
So I'm just thinking about the extractive industry. Economies built on the back of poor laborers here in Africa, in South Africa, environmental rights being subverted. We have cases of, is it silicosis, miners dying, no recourse, no compensation. Glencore comes to mind, Total in Zambia, Exxaro as well. I'm now thinking, if you raise the complicity, the direct responsibility of huge multinationals and encourage consumers to boycott them, not to invest in them, I bet you there are people in this room who are thinking, what about the jobs? What about the jobs? And I'm wondering whether is that now blackmail? Will economies collapse if action is taken as a result of this? Or are you saying the cost to humanity is so much bigger than what economies, countries stand to lose if they took action? It's about business ethics, right? And the broader picture.
Absolutely. Look, I think that this is a dilemma which shouldn't be resolved by individuals, individuals themselves. To give you an example, I was recently, I don't know if you have noticed, but in Italy there was an upsurge. There was really a popular uprising, and it's still ongoing, but of course there is repression like there has been in Germany, in France, in the UK. So for once, Europeans are doing the right thing. They are reacting against the businesses, against the governments, taking legal actions, etc., which is amazing. And but the thing is that, for example, dockers have been particularly dockers and trade unions have been really effective in Italy because they've said we are going to block all. And you know, I heard in late 2023 Dr. Naledi Pandor saying, if for 1 month trade unions called for strikes, the genocide would stop immediately. These things stuck to my mind, and then I've been repeating it obsessively and discussing with trade unions everywhere, including in Italy. And then there was a moment where the dockers did it. They said, we call a strike, we start blocking everything. Students had already done it, and that they had been punished, but all of a sudden they came out together. And here's the dilemma. One set of dockers in a city said, yes, but if we close the port, and the other port is going to open, there will be a crisis because the economic gains are going to shift and we will be punished. This is why I'm saying you need to, how many ports in Italy are transferring weapons to Israel? 5. Well, the 5 of them have to come together. And because, and again, there is a legal action to take against the government because sending weapons to Israel is ipso facto a violation of international law. It's very, very clear, it's easy. And so why I'm quoting this anecdote, because I think that we need to see each other as a humanity, and we need to understand that we live in an economic system that has made the majority of us disposable. We do not count, and weakening our rights is a way to make us more and more disposable. And Europe is seeing it. I mean, I see the difference between my generation and the next generation. There is much more precarity in terms of access to job security, access to health, etc. Support to education. Education was free when I was at university, and now it's changing. So, but while the expenses are, I mean, the public expenditure is shifting toward military from health and education. So the question is, we live in a system which is devised to make us weak, and this is capitalism. It's not a state of nature. It's been there for 300 years. But it's not just, I mean, I'm not proposing an anti-capitalist agenda, but I'm just saying we need to tame this wild beast. It's okay to pursue profits, but not to the expense of human life. And this is true in Palestine, it's true in Congo, it's true in South Africa, etc., etc. So to answer your question is, yes, there must be alternative to this, because first of all, the thing is that the pressure is not to aim apart from several problematic companies who are extremely detrimental to the environment, like oil companies or coal. I mean, it's an issue. It is about the environment, and it has a cost. It has a cost which maybe it's deferred, but it's still a cost on humanity and other creatures. But the thing is that someone needs to pay for that cost. It shouldn't be the workers. So the first pressure should be for the business, not to shut down, just to change, not to trade with Israel. It's not that complicated. Trade with someone else. Why fruits is to be exported? I mean, this country export coal, export fruit juices and raw diamonds to Israel. Find other markets, but also diamonds. And I mean, there are things, I'm not an expert in South African economies, but you have excellent talents. Work out other solutions. This is not impossible. Actually, it is necessary. And it has been in other contexts. We need to build alternatives to this system, because in any case, in the long run, it's not sustainable. And again, it's proving possible to disengage from the Israeli economy without collapsing. BDS has been quite successful this year, more than in the past. And no insurance company has gone bankrupt or others. But again, Israel is one, and it's going to set an example to start behaving ethically. As consumers, we need to do ethical choices, ethical purchase, as administrations and institutions, ethical procurements, and ethical sales as a state. So this is not an easy answer, but we have to try an alternative.
And just to be clear, I wasn't picking on Glencore. It's a real situation, right? Their respective subsidiaries own the mines, and 3 ports involved in delivery of 15 coal shipments to Israel. Israel does get some of it to Colombia, from Colombia, and so on. But I also saw somewhere where there is conversation about civilian infrastructure, and I'll bring it back to the South African reality, the mining houses. For all the ills that I mentioned, I bet you every mining company would mention a hospital that they built, a school for civilians, a road that they built. I can even go to Sudan and talk about the UAE. The UAE is not just focusing in responding to this crisis on the military elements of it. They'll talk about how they are investing in Africa, and we are seeing as they crisscross the length and breadth of the globe, how UAE officials are speaking a little bit more on multilateral platforms about the money that they're bringing into Africa. So you have this duality, you have this reality, and you have a claim that they make about investing in civilian infrastructure. Your response? It's
Look,
for the people.
everything has a price. And again, the question is, I mean, I hear, and it's no surprise, but I hear especially young people being very, very critical in this country when discussing the end of apartheid, because they say, yeah, but look at the economic situation. This is the thing. You cannot dismantle apartheid for real without uprooting, without dismantling the economic, financial underpinning, the backbone of the system. And again, settler colonialism is in and of its own an exploitative system that is to be seen and undone in order to then create an alternative. Dismantling the discrimination was critical, was fundamental, but if there has not been a proper redistribution, and again, I don't want to speculate because I don't know South Africa well or well enough, but the land reform that was expected, has it taken place? Yes or no? Has justice been made? Has there been compensation, restitution, so as to rebuild the trust, to give the economic means? Which means it's not a failure. It's not a failure. It's still work in progress, and it is to be continued. So justice is always an unfinished business. Good news.
We've got about 4 minutes before I come to the audience. What I'm going to ask you is to just start thinking about the question, right? Start thinking about the question. No preambles, no speeches. You can tell us who you are because we are lovely people. We love to know who you are. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and then just say your question or say your comment, and only one. I'm going to be very strict about that. The Nelson Mandela Foundation is very generous. I've never moderated any platform where the Q&A section is over 60 minutes. They always give you guys 5 minutes, and it's unfair. So don't abuse it. We're going to give you some time to ask your questions. Okay, there's a lot to say about that intersection, the struggle for ethical and just business practices. I'll just pause here for 1 minute and just talk about you. You've been sanctioned by the United States, and who knows, maybe there'll be more sanctions after this.
Oh no.
How has that, I don't know, how has that energized or truncated your work? I ask this because we are at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. The man about whom we gather at this time annually for the lecture, and on 18th of July, when it's Nelson Mandela Day, the man was portrayed by some as this cuddly grandpa who didn't have radical politics. He did. He responded to the demands of the time. When it was time for the armed struggle, that's what he called for. When it was time for engagement across color lines, across geography, across gender, he knew how to do that. When it was time to lift that Rugby World Cup trophy, he knew how to do this. He was also about dialogue. And I think dialogue is far more important when we disagree. When we agree, it's easy to have dialogue. But when we disagree, it's far more difficult. So I want to ask you that. You've been sanctioned. You still have to do the work. You still want consumers and states and organizations, academic institutions, to take the work seriously and urgently. What does it mean to do this work in the context of those sanctions, and what has been the cost to you personally?
The cost has been heavy, but I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about the fact that anyone who does it, and especially the Palestinians, face it. What happens to me is a reflex of how much hatred there is, and how many resources are invested to silence any debate concerning Palestine. You know, wherever I go, I try to engage, to create those occasions of dialogue. I come from a country where there is a very conservative Jewish Italian populations. I mean, the phenomenon of progressive, critical Jews, anti-Zionist Jews is very new. It's post-October 2023. They are primarily young people who are facing extreme pressure, isolation, retaliation. It's pretty horrible, but they're wonderful human beings, and there is this sense of companionship. We are in this together. And it's about who we are as human beings, regardless of religion. And also, I wonder, how can one invoke religion to justify the killing of kids? 20,000 kids, 20,000 children, kids, just by bombs. We don't know how many are still under the rubble. And the fact that our Palestinians, there is a level of dehumanization of the Palestinians in the part of the world I come from, which is disgusting. And I feel appalled. The reason why I'm so devoted to this is because I'm European. I take not offense, but I take an issue when people tell me, oh, you are so Palestinian. No, I'm not Palestinian. I'm Italian. I'm a very proud Italian who was raised in a family who educated her. My first teaching and my first readings were about the Holocaust. And this is part of my upbringing. It cannot be taken away from me. So I take issue when someone in the Jewish community in Italy tries to shut me down and not to let me talk. What am I saying that it's so offensive? So first of all, why do I have to carry this? It's such an attack. It's so offensive to be told that you are an anti-Semite. And it's so vilifying toward what Holocaust has been, what anti-Semitism is still in the part of the world I come from and beyond. Anti-Semitism is still real, but it's discrimination against the Jews because they are Jews. It has nothing to do with this Israel and its proclaimed religion. I couldn't care less. Israel could proclaim itself to be Buddhist, to be Muslim, to be Christian or secular. It wouldn't change a thing, because what matters is compliance with international law. So all the allegations against me and those like me are just a mere distraction, not to talk about the issues, because attacking me as an anti-Semite is just a reason not to talk about Palestine. And I say, come. I also told asked the Nelson Mandela Foundation, can you please invite the Zionist parts of the population, which is not just like South African Jews, Christian Zionists. I mean, this is the thing we need to talk about, because even in my country, the most conservative policies are enacted by people who have nothing to do with Judaism. Who are anti-Semites for real until 50 years ago. I've been accused to be an anti-Semite by a parliamentarian, and there is a picture of him with a swastika on his left hand. But the problem is me, advocating for human rights. No, this is serious. And this is why, again, it's not about me. It's really not about me. But again, because I'm a European descendant of people who let millions of Jews, including 1,000 Italian Jews, to be slaughtered, and before being slaughtered, to be starved in ghettos, I feel a moral imperative inside me to stand against this. Okay. And this is the only reason I'm against this. And brings me to this.
Last question. There's some impatience. I mean, the ICJ ruled yesterday that UNRWA has not been, there's no evidence brought by Israel that UNRWA has been infiltrated by Hamas. It recognized UNRWA as the body that is authorized to do the work that it is supposed to do. So there are these periodic legal and moral victories that should, to use that word again, energize those who do the kind of work that you do. But in the context of what you found in your report, this is my final question before we get to the audience, is international law enough? Is it enough to make accountable the corporate entities that you have just highlighted, and where does that process start? Very quickly.
I think it is. International law, though, is as effective as the will of state to enforce it. And this is where people living in democracies make a difference compared to people living in dictatorships, because we can influence the governments to protest demonstrations, but also direct action. This is why the BDS is so important, and you do not need to adhere to the movement, but it's something that should be so intuitive to South Africans, and it's less intuitive for others. But it's necessary to take concrete actions. International law is as good as it it's needed in order to bring justice. And justice for Palestine is not just justice for Palestine, it's justice also for us and starts at home.
Questions? Hands up. Name and the question. Yes. Do we have a roving? Okay. I'll help with this. Thank you. Here we go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much and welcome to our country, Francesca. I'm Zunaida. I'm an attorney and I am a legal researcher at the Mandela Institute, School of Law, University of the Witwatersrand, where I lead the climate law and litigation program. So your report is brilliant. It talks about genocide. I'm going to read my notes.
No, we don't want notes. We want the question.
You've identified genocidal acts. You've evidenced genocidal intent. You've talked about complicity and state responsibility. And I note similarities in the ICJ 2025 July climate advisory opinion. The court made very clear state responsibilities. The court said these are erga omnes responsibilities. The court, knowing transnational challenges with accountability. And I just want to know from you, this is my question really. So can you discuss how climate human rights discourses interact with this, the displacement, the infrastructure damages, the famine for an already vulnerable and attacked Gaza and Palestine?
Thank you. Do you want us to take a few questions around and then you'll
So remember? I can skip the question.
Okay. Can you take it right to the back? I've seen you.
My name is George Knock. I'm a lecturer. I just wanted to know the uprising of the youth in terms of pro-Palestine. Will that have a massive impact in the future?
That's how you do it, guys. You're my favorite person in this room. Who's okay, there? Let's go.
Hi, my name is Nairi Blankenberg. I work with museums and heritage. So we have a long history of understanding about the Holocaust and the steps of genocide, et cetera. And I guess my question to you is, I don't think this issue is one of ignorance. And how do you respond when the damage keeps happening despite people knowing what's going on?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
We can
so we can do 3, right?
No, maybe more.
More?
No, this is 3, so we can take 5.
Okay, 2 more. Okay.
My name is Miriam, and I work in the development sector. My question is, you've pointed out that genocide is very much entrenched in economy, and it really will take a lot of micro-revolution in individual revolutions, consumer revolutions, to disentrench this, right? But not everybody has access to this information, especially because we know who really rules the media and who controls the narratives that people are exposed to. So how do we, as people that know what is happening, play an active role in making this obvious so that people have an easier way of making the right choice?
Okay. I think that's 5, hey? Or can I not count? That's 4. I did fail maths, but there we go.
Hi, I'm Francesca. Welcome.
Can you speak a little louder, dear?
Okay. Can you hear me?
It's on, right?
Okay.
The green button's on.
The green button?
Yeah, just speak into it louder. Yeah.
So my question, my name's Dorcas. I work in the corporate sector in consumer insights and marketing strategy. And I just wanted to ask you, what advice would you offer to small businesses that lack full visibility across the value chain, but are eager to participate in this human rights-centered transition? Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure I understood the question. I beg your pardon. Do you mind to repeat? You lost me at value chain.
So maybe I'll just make it simpler. A lot of small businesses have multiple stages in their value chain, so they don't necessarily see exactly where the source of the issue might be.
Yes.
So what advice would you have for them as they try to also involve themselves in this transition to be more human rights centered in their sourcing and supply chain initiatives?
Thank you.
So that's 5.
Yeah.
You want more?
No.
Okay. We'll then do another round. We'll do another round.
Yes, I'll try to be brief. The first question is a complicated one, so I don't want to pontificate. Don't have high expectations, please. I don't want to pontificate on something I'm not comfortable about, but I do know that the issue of resource exploitations has been critical in Palestine, as always. It's interesting that a few days after October 7, where the entire world was in shock and pain for what had happened to so many Israelis, the Israeli government was stipulating partnerships with oil companies for the exploitation of offshore gas fields, offshore Gaza, off the Gaza shore. So the thing is that, and of course this has an environmental impact. The destruction of Gaza has an environmental impact. So there are so many ways to look at state responsibility that comes out of the International Court of Justice opinion on climate change, in the sense. How are the Palestinian people going to recover from that, from the damage that has been made to the environment? And will this be taken into account, including when the responsibility of others, of the United States, of Germany and Italy? I mentioned these three because these are the ones who have been providing weapons in violations of the provisional measures ordered by the International Court of Justice. So again, it's not gentle to. It's not kind to answer a question with a question, but this is what comes to mind. This is an area that necessitates of definitely for the research, but also for accountability purposes. I don't have the crystal ball, so I cannot tell you whether this youth movement it will lead to, on whether it's sustainable. But I do see that this has been mounting. This was unlike many who have joined lately the realization that there was a genocide ongoing. Students have been the first in US campuses in 120 US universities. Students, many of them from other countries, many of them American Jews, they have been the ones staging encampments in order to protest, not to protest the genocide, but asking accountability to their universities. So they've been the first responsible actors. And with such a youth, I feel reassured that we are getting toward a better place. Now, the point is that they cannot be left alone. And now, yes, workers are coming into the scene, but there is a need for everyone to sacrifice a little bit of their comfort so that another people doesn't lose everything. And are we up for the challenge? This, I don't know, but this is what we are called to today. I agree with you that this question is not one of ignorance. People know what's going on. They refuse to see the Palestinians. They refuse to see the Palestinians as human beings. I mean, the fact that you ask me what keeps you energized, nothing. I'm not energized. I'm in distress. I mean, this is PTSD, because I cannot rest unless I keep on giving myself a meaning. And either I am with my children or I am with you, trying to stop the genocide and thinking that perhaps if many more people understand, this is not the first genocide that happened under our eyes. I mean, we keep on bringing the example of South Africa as a case of proximity to Palestine. But again, I do think that the way Jews have been treated during the Holocaust speaks more to the destiny that has fallen upon the Palestinians. I mean, it speaks more to this than anything else I can think of. Because if you read the Nuremberg trials, acts, the proceedings, you will see at a certain point, I mean, Nazi soldiers are asked, yeah, but why did you exterminate everyone? Because they were a danger. They were a danger to us, pure race, superior race. And yeah, but the kids, why the children? Because they would grow into a danger. And this is the thing, when you hear, I mean, I hear even others, I mean, this narrative is amplified in Europe, in my own country, and it pains me to hear acclaimed journalists dismissing the fact that there are 20,000 Palestinian children killed. Because if I say, and just provocatively, but if had 20,000 Israeli children been killed, where would be today? And thank God it has not happened, and it shouldn't happen. But why Palestinians' life doesn't matter? Because we are racist. And my friend Ras Sigal is right when he says the idea of the pure race was not a product of Hitler. It pre-existed Hitler, yes, colonization, because in fact the Germans experimented on the Jews with the concentration camps, the tactics that they had, extermination tactics that they had experimented and practiced against the Herero and Nama. And look at the way they deal, look at the way Germany deals with the two genocides. Isn't it Orientalist, at least? Yes. I mean, again, and Raz says the idea of the pure race was not conceived by the Nazi and didn't die with the Nazism. This is the thing. We still have to face racism. When we will have uprooted racism, discrimination against the other on any ground, yet the first two lines of is the Constitution that you have, that it's the beautiful statement against any forms of discrimination. This is the world achievement. This is the world challenge, because of course there is discrimination also in Africa. I live in Tunisia, and Tunisians are racist against someone else, and probably there is here as well. And there shouldn't be. So this is our common enemy. And this is the long-term engagement, but today Palestine is putting us on a test. And they say, oh, but you are divisive. No, it's that the word is divided between those who want to stop the genocide and those who continue to defend it and its reasons. So, no, I didn't say that. Sorry, where are you? I didn't say what you said. I said that genocide is the dormant gene of settler colonialism. No, and the private sector, economic reasons are ingrained not in genocide. I wouldn't have the capacity to say that because I've not studied the other genocides. But settler colonialism is driven or is supported, is upheld by economic and financial reasons. And the media, where to start? Of course, can you hear me? No,
Yeah.
Corporate media, state-owned media, especially in Western countries, in the global minority, have been part and parcel of the ecosystem that has enabled the genocide. And this is not different from other genocides. If you look at the jurisprudence that was developed in the post the Rwanda genocide and post the former Yugoslavia genocide in Bosnia and Herzegovina, you can see that the media has been pointed at as a factor of complicity, as an element of complicity. And the thing is that what is new here, but there are precedents in the Holocaust, is that there has been a cross-country, a transnational discrimination against this group, which has been killed, blamed and smeared. And the only precedent that I can think of, but this is where debate must happen, including among genocide scholars, is that in Europe the same discrimination and was traveling across the continent against Jewish people. And the same stereotypes would be used in France and in Holland and in Italy. So we need to. And again, this is part of our European history. This is why I don't want to be silenced on that, because we have made mistakes in the past, but we must be better. This is not the first genocide that happened under our eyes. This is the first genocide that we realize of which we have a sense of awareness. And so we are called upon changing matters, taking matters in our hands and stopping and punish it. The source of look. Again, I do think that this is part of the due diligence, understanding the kind of harm you can do is part of a due diligence of any business. I'm not a technical expert. As I said, once I was exchanging with some economists who said, oh, just a lawyer could get surprised of these results. But yeah, I had no idea that the system were so nefarious. And it is so nefarious because businesses betray their commitment to observe, to do due diligence, which in a situation of context is heightened. You cannot engage in a situation of conflict like Congo without really making sure of the harm you can do to the population. And a business cannot justify itself saying, oh, I'm I'm just a subcontractor, so, or just I have subcontractors. No. So I really think that this is a general answer to say it really depends on the kind of sector you operate within. But there are resources in each country. In South Africa, you have a BDS movement, and it's a leading force, a transnational leading force, especially Palestine-led. And it's a philosophy, it's not even a movement, it's a philosophy. As for member states have to cut ties with Israel and have to impose sanctions. And so businesses have to divest, and citizens or institutions can boycott. This is the ABC of ethical choices, and step by step we can make that change.
Another round.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Voiswa. I'm a writer.
Voiswa, can you do it like this rather than that
Okay.
way? Like for it
I'm a
to-
writer.
What?
Oh, okay. My name is Voiswa. I'm a writer, historian, a victim of apartheid. Had to grow up in exile from a tender age. My question is, Project War against Africa is on the cards already. That's why they're in a hurry for a semi-ceasefire in the Gaza, because Africa is the next project. So I want to ask you, since white supremacy is already planned, we see the returning of region of Sinai, that the likes of Al-Sisi characters who are betraying the continent, because it will be a getaway. It's already happening, DRC, the Sahel, Cabo Delgado in Mozambique, and we know it's about to happen, a war in Africa, because it seems the warmongers never get enough. It's a war of minerals that they want to control. So what's your take on that, and how can we actually stop it? We are tired of colonization, of slavery, of all the evils, you know. We are not compensated. We are here still having fresh scars from apartheid, and we've not been compensated. We have to move on. I don't know we move on where. That's what we're told. You have to move on. I think I spoke to you on SAFM in the morning. We move on where?
Was it you?
Where?
Can I just add to that, Francesca, just for context, because in South Africa, you know, we had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and I know that young people like to phrase it in a particular way, that there was no accountability, and you're right. There were recommendations that were ignored by the government of the day, recommendations for prosecutions, but there were also recommendations, and the face of the Archbishop comes to mind, Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu, for restitution, economic restitution. And it was, ironically, the new leaders of the new South Africa under the ANC, the people who paid the price, together with many other factions of our society, who stalled. So the new government of South Africa, the post-apartheid government, did not encourage the kind of restitution that would have brought a level of respite and comfort. And it's an important question because in light of your report, we may just face a situation where international law says one thing, the courts rule in a particular way, but the political forces decide this is too complicated. We've got state-to-state relations. Look at the relationship that is unfolding now between Qatar and the United States. Look at the United States and Putin right now. India is now going close to China after Donald Trump started slamming India. So these relationships just keep moving, and politically expedient decisions can get made so that the work of the report and the court ruling don't go anywhere. Just a thought for you to keep in mind as you answer that one. Next round of questions, we're on the same round. You know what, because, is there a microphone there? Because you are there, my brother, just leave it, I see you.
There's also
Where's this? Yeah, so maybe move this one now, here, and then, yeah, one microphone in the front, one at the back. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Natasha. I'm from the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation. I wrote it down. In today's discourse around Palestine, why do you think Black Palestinians and Africans in Palestine, their voices remain so marginal in the global narrative? And what responsibility do we, as the human rights community, have to change that?
Okay. Third round, let's go here.
Hi, Francesca. I'm asking this question because you're a UN Special Rapporteur. And to what extent are you engaging United Nations agencies on their supply chains, groups like the UN Joint Pension Fund, on the investments that they have made and how to ensure that they are not complicit? Thank you.
We might as well, because it's here. Okay, it's there now. Okay, I'm not getting involved in your conflict.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Albanese. I want to talk about universities as enablers. I'm from the University of Johannesburg. My name is Anisa Khan. Universities in particular invest very heavily in ranking systems as part of their branding, their marketing, and also in terms of the investment that they attract. Is there any engagement with university rankings bodies to hold universities accountable, particularly in terms of due diligence or human rights frameworks around rankings? And how can we, as those who are within that university system, kind of support engagements around getting universities to start thinking about how they work in the ranking systems using values-based and human rights or due diligence frameworks? So basically, is anyone pressurizing rankings bodies to kind of hit universities where they place a lot of investment around, particularly in terms of seeing themselves as enablers of the system? Thank you.
Let's take it to the back there. Where's the next hand so that I know which? Okay, there. Right, okay.
Okay, thank you. My name is Priyanka Naidu. I'm a human rights lawyer. I was really interested in the mention of international law being enough when it has felt like we've witnessed its slow death over the last 2 years. But perhaps what the point was that a lot of the failures have been failures of politics and not law. And so as a lawyer, how do we solve this crisis with politics when it also seems to extend to the larger corporate accountability movement? For example, just how long it's taken to get a binding business and human rights treaty off the ground.
Nice. The gentleman at the back.
Thank you very much. John Rowett, longtime friend of the Foundation and sometimes Secretary General of the Association of Commonwealth Universities. Our colleague, Avi Schleim, has documented the scholasticide which has taken place, the destruction of universities, of schools, of centres of Palestinian memory. What are the practical strategies you can suggest for us to try to assist our colleagues whose institutions have been destroyed?
Yeah.
Okay. That was 5, ne?
Yeah. It's 6, really. I know the 6.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you. Riswa, I agree with you. I share your concern. I share your concern as someone, and not as someone from Europe who is here at the roots of Mother Africa and says, I'm here to dispense pearls of wisdom. No, it's because we are in the same boat, now more than ever. Because there is one thing that is clear, is that the system, there is a, and I might not be the most effective storyteller here because I've really ventured outside of my comfort zone when I wrote this report on the economy of the occupation. And also, let me tell you, the first time that I thought about the possibility of writing this report was in 2023 when I came across a document which was about documenting how Danish and from Holland?
From
Dutch company, banks were profiting, were investing in the occupied Palestinian territories. They said, really? The Norwegian pension fund? How come? It made total nonsense. It was total nonsense to me. So I've had to come to really forge my mind to get all that, store that information, because my background is toward something else. It's more civil and political rights oriented. And again, how can talk about civil and political rights without realizing that economic, social, and cultural rights are a critical part of it, right? And the thing is that I understand today intuitively that we are all disposable in this hyper-liberal capitalist system, which is all connected. And the more and more it gets globalized, the more and more states lose their protective function, the more and more we are at the mercy of multinationals that are more or less openly rapacious. But again, we are not the first of their, our life and our well-being is not the first of their concerns. So I think today that we should understand where is the common enemy, if we can refer to an enemy. And I think that there is a concentration of power which is made of capitals, the usual money, it's a lot, and the concentration of military military power that today is coupled with technology and has become more and more dangerous because it can. It doesn't need boots on the ground. You can get destroyed. You can get your body devastated. You can become disabled because of sound bombs. Sound bombs, something that doesn't even hurt you. I mean, makes you bleed. It's incredible. So the technology is such that has created the instruments was an act of love. And then the development field and the UN and the human rights organizations came and professionalized solidarity to a point that there was no solidarity anymore. And then you're pushed back into a place of despair where you really need to take care of each other. And this is the thing, this is the challenge. We need to rediscover that sense of solidarity. Just think how, I mean, I do practice it, I do try to make sense of it in my own life, and this is something that we have to practice ourselves. But there is an American rabbi who says, Alisa Weiss, solidarity is the political declination of love. And I like to remind people that the etymology, the root of solidarity is solidum. And you say, well, solidum, which means one piece. What does it mean? It's this. And we need to stick together. We need to help one another. And this is the time to practice what comes from here, comes from South Africa, but has been also practiced and shared by the Palestinians. It's been a call for unity of the people and all the minorities who are struggling, unity of the people and unity of the struggle. This is the time to do that. If it's not a genocide which ignites this sense of resistance, and it's there is a revolution brewing, I see in other parts of the world, but it is to be an entire movement, and we need all hands, all hearts, all minds, all feet in order to challenge this system. I hope it makes sense. But justice, I understand the frustration you have, and it's not easy to say. I feel the weight of saying justice is an unfinished business. From a very, very different path. But my country emerged from 20 years of dictatorship, which is brutal. And it was resolved with nothing. I mean, the dictator was hanged in the public square, and that was it. There's never been a transitional justice process. So it has meant that evil remained in the vein of the system. It got diluted, it got under the water for a while, and then it came back as new problems. So, but then sooner or later, that form of injustice becomes evil to a point that you have to take care of it. And frustration, but probably this is the opportunity to bring them in and build a new way of being together, healing the wounds of the past, including by pushing for a proper restorative process, for restitution. They are the electoral body of this country, after all, and they should be helping the old ones, those who carry the wounds of the apartheid, to get them healed. The question of black Palestinians being so marginal. Look, I think you raise a very important question. The point is that there are so many human rights specificities that are not captured. There is not even time to look at in the current disaster. That I mean, even look at the gender dynamics, how female victims of genocide or even children are indiscriminately affected. We don't have the time to look at this because the genocide is so overwhelming. But then, yes, there should be means available in order to make that. I don't think that there is anyone in the Palestinian struggle which is particularly visible. Palestinians are silenced, really silenced, including in places where the diasporic Palestinians are present in heavy numbers. And this speaks to the anti-Palestinian racism that is so rooted in many of our societies. This is why when I hear the anti-Semitism label used over and over and over, not only I think this is a real problem for Jewish people, associated with what Israel does without willing it. And but also the fact that there should be assertiveness in pointing to how the silencing of Palestinian voices, Palestinian identity, Palestinian history, and denying of genocide. The denial of a genocide is part of the genocide itself. This emerges from genocide studies, so it should be denounced. The UN as a supplier, oh yes, I mean the ICJ advice is the starting point, while now what all member states are doing, including Arab states, including states from the global majority, there is nothing to applaud in that peace plan, because this is going to cement the occupation, and these reconstruction plans are going to achieve the goals that genocide has not achieved, the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. And again, look, ethnic cleansing of Gaza. And again, look, I've lost so much, nothing that holds me back. And this is the reality. And with the last report that I've written, I expect even more criticism from the international community, because the 62 states that have been mentioned as being complicit in the crimes that Israel has committed, of course they will hold the grudge against me. That's fine. But the thing is that my message will not be in vain if it's carried out by civil society, if it's really owned. And now it's up to you in South Africa to make sure that South Africa changes its habits. And going back to the UN is part of it. Clearly, is part of it. To the UN is part of it. Clearly, is part of it. There are commissions that the UN, again, I because of reasons of space, because I have 9,000 words, I couldn't go further. But this is a very seriously, it's not an excuse. I'm honest. Talk about 62 states with 9,000 words. But so yes, the UN is extremely problematic, including for the partnerships it has. The fact that the UN was organizing a conference in Geneva to talk about the tech industry is extremely problematic. Like 6 days or 10 days after that I've published my report pointing to Microsoft, Amazon, and others as part and parcel, and Google as part and parcel of the genocidal machinery that Israel has used against the Palestinians. But again, this cannot be done by few individuals. I also think that it has started, but there is a need for people working inside the United Nations to realize, yes, you are international civil servants, but like any civil servants right now, including those who work in states, are you more civil or are you more servant? Because this will determine the kind of action that you can push and prompt from within organizations. And in OHCHR, for example, there are 500 staff members from headquarters who have complained against the position on the lack of positionality of the office, the lack of strong voice against the genocide. But what about the partnership that UN organizations undertake with the military industry, peacekeeping operations? Can we check peacekeeping operations in Africa? What kind of weapons they use? What kind of security system they use? Do they have partnership with Elbit? Well, if yes, this partnership have to be cut. Otherwise, they will have to be held accountable as well. So this is, again, a moment for responsibilizing every one of us to what we have to do. Universities. I'm not an expert on the ranking system, also because this is quite specific to the Anglophone hemisphere. And but I'd like to say that universities are clearly part of it. They've been normalizers, and in various ways. First of all, again, I don't know how much this applies to South Africa, but there has been a crescendo of silencing of the debate around Palestine. When I grew up, it was not like that. When I was at university, just a few years ago, yeah. I was joking just a few years ago. When I was at university, you could talk about Palestine, the Kurdish people, Tibet, the Sahrawi in the same breath. Today you can't. You can't talk about Palestine. So universities, first and foremost, have become places of obscurantism. And this is the very betrayal of academic freedom. And this is the very betrayal of the work that academics are obliged to, actually the functions they are obliged to deliver toward the younger generation that come to them to get nourished, to get helped to get nourished, to be an active and meaningful part of the society. The other part of it is the partnerships that universities have entered into. So not only they have often proposed a narrative that has contributed to, that has refused to decolonize itself, let's put it this way. But also they have entered partnership with the army industry, and normally the army, the defense industry is connected one way or another to Israel. And there are certain universities that I've named in my report, which I made it's about mathematics. You see that if they lose the partnerships with Israel, they go bankrupt. And this is why, for example, German universities have turned really, the TUM, the Technical University of Munich, when I was there in February, I heard that students had been kidnapped, had been held for 2 hours. So they had asked for a meeting with the university, and they would be held for 2 hours until the police arrived and profiled them. Why the university did it? Because if it loses the partnership with that sources connected to Israel, it would probably have to shut down. So these are the compromises. How did we get there? Why universities are become functions to the markets and to the arms industry? Why technology and sciences have become subservient to these? And today it doesn't matter how and why this needs to stop. But this is why it's necessary that the staff, administrative staff, and academic body doesn't leave the weight of it on the shoulders of the students only. And then, of course, it should reflect in the ranking system. One thing that I've said to all the university students who have been kicked out, they've lost scholarship, they've been kicked out of the university, I said this is the right opportunity to experience and to move to the wonderful universities that are in the global majorities. And I've mentioned South Africa. It's real. So this is to change. This is the moment to change. And we need to, I'm really proud to be connational of Antonio Gramsci, one of the few Italians who make us proud. No, it's not true. There are many, but he's internationally known for the wisdom he brought, and cultural hegemony is part of it. We understand it and break it from within. And the only way to do that is by, in a most peaceful way, walking out of the system. You don't need to be graduating in a US university or in a UK university, which imposes silence upon you, which betrays that promise of academic freedom. Let's go somewhere else. And I restate the fact that, again, I don't want to oversell international law. But international law is the last peaceful instrument we have at our disposal to maintain peace and stability. And I really believe we should make a better use of it. In terms of justiciability, we have laws, we have institutions. If the institutions fail, or if the business sector fails, or if universities fail, we need to hold them accountable, which doesn't mean that we have to start strategic litigation.
It's okay, we can still hear you.
Strategic litigation at every step. But there are different ways to put pressure and make your voice heard in other parts of the world is shifting, is moving the needles. The fact that member states are turning so states like Italy or Germany. Germany. Have you ever worked in the developing field, getting on GIZ grants? The German development corporations, fantastic. They were the peace builders everywhere, helping the Palestinian in refugee camps practice freedom of expression and freedom of association, teaching them about that. Look at what they did. And then they cannot stand against their governments as it beats week after week the hell out of peaceful demonstrators. So this is what I say, white saviorism. We don't need it. And if we can break the last remnants of that colonial mentality, let's do that. And but again, I really think that it's time to use the law as a shield and as a sword. And this is up to us everywhere, demonstrating. I wouldn't say protesting, demonstrating as well. And then the last question was about strategies, but I don't think I remember what the question was.
I don't either. Was it from that side? Would you like to repeat it very quickly?
Oh yeah. Scholasticide. Yeah. No, I got distracted.
I can't even pronounce that word, so I wasn't going to be able to help you.
No, I got emotional and I didn't take good handwritten notes. But when you mentioned our friends, Avi Schleim, Professor Avi Schleim. No, and look, I think that the best thing we can do to help is to ask Palestinians, Palestinian academics. And there was something really, really moving that happened to me when I was in Canada. I met a professor, a Palestinian professor. 11 universities have been completely leveled to the ground. What was the need to destroy everything? Seriously, how can this ever be a war? 8 out of 9 homes demolished, pulverized, all universities, all mosques, all churches, there is nothing left. So and again, this is what the Palestinians have suffered through and through. Since on the 14th of October, 2023, it's not because I had a crystal ball, I said, Israel is using the excuse of the fog of war to ethnically cleanse Gaza, to destroy everything and to make sure that they do not return. How did I know? Because it had happened in 1947-49. This is what happened. This is exactly what happened, not as brutal as, because there were not the means and technology of 21st century. But in 1967, same thing. People kicked out and villages and cities and even refugee camps destroyed. This is the reality. What is interesting now is there is greater sense of acknowledgement for what the Palestinian Nakba is, for what Israel as a settler colonial project. So it's true that there were refugees, Holocaust survivors who had nowhere to go. And this is true. And so we cannot hide this. And again, this is another problem, another European problem that we don't want to deal with. After the Holocaust, where the concentration camps were shut down, many Holocaust survivors were refused entry in the US, in Australia, in the UK. They had nowhere else to go. But the point is that they just didn't go as refugees in a land that been a welcome place to refugees forever. To the Armenians, but also to the Jews when they were to the Jews and others who were Muslim who were kicked out of Spain in the 1500s. So there is something that happened, and it was the dispossession of the indigenous Palestinians that has never been accounted for. This is what I knew, and today there is more awareness than before, at least, of what Israel has been doing for 77 years to the Palestinians. But so going back to the question of universities, this professor in Canada told me, "I'm really trying. I don't want to teach here. I don't want to be given a place to teach here. I want to keep on teaching to my students in Gaza. Now I keep on teaching them they learn through their phones. They are in tents or in the remnants of their homes, and they keep on trying to connect to the Wi-Fi to continue their exams." And it was so painful. But this is the thing. We need to First of all, we need to make sure that there is proper funds allocated by those who have orchestrated and executed this genocide. Israel, and I think the United States, Germany and Italy, because they have provided the weapons, they have provided the means without which this genocide would have not been enabled, and all the others. So I even ask the Arab countries, please, please, don't bend backward in order to accommodate the needs of this settler colonial plan in disguise. No, no, let's straighten our back altogether. Because if we isolate Israel and the United States, there are 191 members of the international community. Is it possible that no one brings these 191 member states together? So again, we need to be visionary. We need to have the power of imagination. But again, as I read, probably this is the 5th time I quote this in a day, there was this beautiful letter. Sorry, Nelson Mandela Foundation folks, you can close your, just cover your ears so you don't hear it again. But Nelson Mandela, there is this beautiful letter which is in the archives here. It says, look, human beings, women and men come and go. Some of them don't even leave a trace on this earth. Who do we believe we are? Really, we are going to become dust sooner than we know. And the thing is that many will be remembered for their evils. A few of us will be remembered for how much we have tried to do goods. And he says at the end, I don't want to be remembered as a saint. I am no saint. But the thing is that don't we want to... We admire Nelson Mandela so much. Doesn't he inspire us to do better? Don't you want to... I mean, this is what I would ask Arab leaders. Don't you want to be the Arab Nelson Mandela? So try, and this is what I'm asking everyone in this room, and I swear, we need to try to be a living legacy of any good person who has inspired us, from St. Francis to Nelson Mandela, and there are beautiful souls everywhere that keep on inspiring us. This is the only chance we have to make this, this horrible and dark face a little bit less dark than it already is. Amen.
I'll take two more questions, and then we're going to wrap up. 2.
So just listen to the Palestinians. This was the answer.
I knew you guys would do that. You start raising your hands when I say 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes. I am resolute. Let's go.
My name's Rehanna. I'm a mother and an activist. I'm not going to give you my academic qualifications. Are we winning?
Are we winning?
Can we win?
Okay.
You told us how we can win.
Oh, yes. Yes, we can.
I'll take at the back there, and you. 4. That's it.
All right. I'm a lawyer, so I don't know how to speak for half a minute. You're Antonio Gramsci, Pope Francis, Little Primo Levi in one. Fantastic. You should have had the Nobel Peace Prize. You should have had the Nobel Peace Prize. You represent much of what we are. I have the question I have as a lawyer and to you is that when you say that we have the instrument of international law, which we do, we have a genocide case now at the ICJ, we've had previous cases before that. When we look at the world right now, coming back to this diagram, which is our conversation about the economy and genocide, then we do have a chance to find the linchpin and the locus, whether it's in the Southern District of New York, or in Italy, or in Spain, or somewhere. We could find that jurisdiction, and that would be a very important milestone in the advancement of bringing business to book. We just need one case. We've done it in other parts. We've done the case in the 2nd District of New York with Bhopal. We have that. We have the Valdi. We have a number of cases, and we can string it along, as Lemkin says. You string it along to get to the genocide case. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, there, and then there, ne? I've made good, ne?
I don't have a microphone, so I'm just going to...
Your voice is beautiful. Let's go.
Here you go. Thank you for being here. You have spoken about the role that technology companies have played in this genocide. Yanis Varoufakis declares that these tech companies have formed a type of cloud capital, unregulated, and we've seen that AI systems like Lavender, the Gospel, targeting by quadcopters, that the very data that is training the future of warfare is being trained on Palestinian fatalities. Absolutely. Do Palestinians have legal recourse to claim back the data that was trained on their family members? And if not, how do we ensure that these AI systems remain ethical in terms of their growth and development?
Thank you. Sorry, do the Palestinians have the recourse?
Legal recourse to reclaim back the data that was taken from them via this targeting without their consent.
There was one at the back. Yes.
Hello. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to ask, I think it's come up quite a bit and Reddy mentioned it a bit earlier as well, the issue of, having mines and that sort of thing, investing in certain communities where people would obviously say, well, we can't boycott Glencore because we know we've seen them, support our healthcare systems in our rural areas and that sort of thing. I think what I wanted to ask is also tied to what you said about the UN and their own supply chain processes. So those companies that are intentionally participating in or investing in certain communities with the intention of whitewashing their own complicity in the genocide, do you think that using international law, there could be a way to hold the people that engage in business with them accountable? So say, for example, a Glencore sponsors a concert, just as an example. Do you think people that intentionally engage with business with those types of companies can also be held accountable using international law?
That was 4. Okay, one more. 5, because we've been doing 5, so I like patterns and, Gaspit, let's go.
Yeah, my name is Naeem Jina. Kind of a follow-up to the last question. As you said, Glencore exports coal to Israel, which is used for military purposes as well. The South African government's defense is that Glencore is a private company and therefore it has nothing to do with it. Is that a valid defense under international law and under the Genocide Convention, or is the South African government practicing hypocrisy?
You wanted to say that here in South Africa before the lecture on Saturday. Good luck. All right, that's 5. We're going to answer and then.
Yeah, can we do that? Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a challenge. We can. And I keep on saying we can and we will. We need to have what Ilan Pappe calls the power of imagination. There are all the signs for it to happen, and I keep on saying we need to make sure that this is the last crime that we allow Israel to commit against the Palestinian people, and the last genocide that we let happen without using the Genocide Convention for what it is, a preventive instrument. It's so clear. And then look at how stupid is the argument. Well, but you cannot really talk about genocide, can you? Because there is no judicial determination. Well, you don't need it. Because, first of all, we have the Commission of Inquiry, which is short of an ICJ decision, is the closest thing to a judicial proceeding you can have, but also the provisional measures ordered by the International Court of Justice, the moment it recognized the risk of genocide. This is what triggered the obligation to prevent. So many things have failed. But now, if we understand, each of us, of the important things that we can do, from our place of power, anyone has power. As a scholar, even if you are a stay-at-home parent, you can decide what to buy and not to buy, whether to join a protest or not, whether to write to your representatives. And again, it's about activating your capacity to critically engage with the system you live in. And so yes, I think that it can happen, but also look at I recognize the friend who took me around in the Apartheid Museum, look at the arc of history. We have come from really dark places. The Catholic Church didn't even recognize human beings as human beings until a few centuries ago. And Christianity and the Church has been used as a tool to oppress and dispossess people, including in this part of the world. I'm shocked that in 2025, the Church still serves that function. Because the moment the churches become a place where to predicate, to offer space to Zionism is not a religion. Judaism is, and yes, I would like to see every place as a place of faith to practice and and church they can host Jewish or Muslim or Buddhist people to pray, but Zionism is not a religion. Zionism is an ideology that today is being invoked to eradicate a people from the place that is home for them. So it shouldn't find a place in churches. And so what are churches doing? What are priests and preachers and pastors doing? They should explain, they should educate their communities. And I understand that the incentives that come with Zionism are huge, but this is moral corruption. You cannot take money. I mean, I've seen places refuses to, while commemorating certain genocides, refuses to open up a space for Palestine because Zionist organizations were providing funds. But seriously, are we still at this point of moral corruption? And this speaks once again to our misery. So yes, there is a lot of work to do, but I have faith in human beings. More faith than trust, I would say. But yes. So I remain a humanist after all. And I don't want to say the only solutions are trials. No, again, trials are costly and should happen, but not as the first strategy. The first way should be dialogue, engagement, put pressure. I don't think that businesses or bankers or people working in finance are all potential criminals. No, this is not true. And there are actually, I've seen so many bankers coming toward me and say, how can we help? How can we become better? So we need to dialogue. We need to establish dialogue with all segments of our society. We need to trust the others. We need to lend our hand. We need to give an opportunity to the others to see the other side of the coin. And this is also about humility. We shouldn't be the holder of truth. We should understand, and it's difficult, we should put ourselves in the shoes of the other and look at the reality from their perspective. Why someone is a Christian Zionist? We need to engage with them. We need to discuss what Christianity means to you. What is there about Christ that is in this ideology? And let's unpack it. So we need to be educators. But I do believe that, yes, we need those cases. And there is so much humanity that is moving from Latin America. There are thousands of lawyers right now providing services for free pro bono to human rights defenders who are accused of anti-Semitism and then sacked, they lose their jobs, they get fired or kicked out of university, or they are victims of lawfare. I mean, I have defamation cases all over. And I have a lot of pro bono lawyers, not all of them. But this is needed, and it's needed to bring to trial, those who have committed crimes, those who have been, for example, there are soldiers with dual nationality. I suspect there are also South Africans who have been fighting in the Israeli army. Well, they need to be vetted. Look, there was one case in Ireland where there was a soldier who was recognized, and then there was this activist who decided to spit at him. I said, no, why? Human rights people don't do that. Call the police, have him arrested and investigated. If you have evidence, provide evidence. And this is why we need to be alerted. There shouldn't be any place that it's a safe haven for people who have committed crimes, who have blood in their hands. And it has been, this is also the lesson that we take from Holocaust survivors. And this is not just the Eichmann trials, it's all the Nazis who have been followed up until Argentina and every corner of the world in which they were hiding. In my country, there are Israeli soldiers who have given public security to make sure that they were not disturbed by protesters in the hotels where they were resting. They were taking, these are the crazy things that happen in various parts of the world. Is it enough to say, no, there is nothing to do? And okay, the system is so rotten that I cannot engage. We don't have the luxury of resting right now because there is a genocide to stop. And until there are lives to be saved, we cannot enjoy respite. to an extent. So, but it's beautiful also to be part of a solidarity movement, because this is a way of healing. There is something extremely cathartic in being on the right side of history, in fighting against injustice. And this is, again, it's healing for me, because the wounds, the vicarious wounds of the genocide are still heavy to carry. And are there, I don't know, I'm not an tech expert, so probably there are lawyers better qualified than me to answer that question. If there is anyone in the room, please feel free to chime in. But I do believe that there should be possible, but I hope that there are many Palestinians who are still alive. Because the thing is that those who have been targeted by Lavender is just all those who were on, in a way, Hamas payroll, including teachers and civil servants and anyone. And they've been targeted with their families. This is why Where is Daddy? It's called Where is Daddy? Because they've targeted the suspects when they were home, so as to create more damage. If it's not a genocidal tactic, this one. Glencourt. I have an issue with companies like Glencourt, or as I was saying, Eni in Italy, or like oil companies providing education. It shouldn't be the oil companies providing education. Are you paying compensation for the damage you are doing to future generations for the destruction of the environment, or what? No, it should be the states providing education in the first place. But all the more, I'm against this whitewashing of their responsibilities. So would I stand? I will tell you, I don't think that there is one way of dealing with it. I don't think that people who accept sponsors who are problematic are to be held accountable, are to be brought to trial. No, this is a place of. This is a space where you eventually are accountable to your own conscience. I mean, but coming to the Nelson Mandela Foundation, I look at the executive director and I said, do you still have Pepsi among your donors? No, you don't. Yeah, good. But I went to an event. I wanted to cancel my participation to an event because there was an oil company involved as a sponsor. And I said, you should have told me in the beginning, because we checked and it was done there in the beginning. But then I said, look, it's better to have a speaking chair than an empty chair. So I went there and I make a case. I said, I almost didn't come to this because of this company, which not only is destroying the environment, is also making business with Israel during the genocide and transferring oil through Egypt to a genocidal state, and even doing other businesses to explore further fossil fuel places. So again, I really think that you need to use your brain to make the best use of the opportunity that is given to you. Did I forget anything?
That's it, right? So, in closing, before we conclude, I was just thinking here about the British East Indian Company?
Yeah.
And the lack of accountability, the Dutch East Indian Company taken with monopolies from the British government, right? And when it was abolished, Britain took administration of their businesses. And of course, we know that wealth was built on slavery, colonialism, theft, imperialism, corruption, you name it. And that's why they're in the dustbins of history. I'm saying this because often when we look at these reports, there's and I had those moments as well. But if you look at the praxis historically and the patterns, then we know that we've been here before. The question before us is, what are we going to do about it? I'm also thinking, is there hope? Was one of the questions. There are some universities that have divested or promised to be open about their investments. I'm thinking of Barcelona, University of California, Evergreen State University, there was Trinity College, Brown University amongst them. So that's a partial answer.
The Norwegian Pension Fund.
Exactly.
Finally.
That's a partial answer to what you asked. So I'm just going to say this one final thing, because I talk for a living, and I'm very uncomfortable when there's an elephant in the room. we've seen in the last couple of days that there's been a concerted assault at the Nelson Mandela Foundation because of your presence here. It's the truth. Am I right or wrong? When we leave here today, that's probably going to continue. It's going to continue until Saturday. It is what is happening. So a lot of people are doing their work at great risk professionally and personally, and I feel duty and morally bound to just acknowledge that this is happening, acknowledge that this is happening. But I hope it's a source of comfort for the Nelson Mandela Foundation, for all of us who have a clear position on this issue, that being on the right side of history is what we ought to pursue. I conclude by reminding you all that we are at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. The people who've run this foundation, Nelson Mandela's family, they know what his values were and are still about. We ought to be comfortable, and as a journalist, I am very comfortable in the work that I'm doing. Why? Because I know the history of our Jewish citizens here in South Africa. I know that condemnation, protest, robust journalism, thought leadership, and open dialogue can live side by side with condemnation of a genocide. And I remind you that Mandela's legal team, during the trial, the treason trial, it was Percy Yuta, right, who was the prosecutor, he was Jewish. But why do we never say that there was an Afrikaner on the other side, Bram Fischer? There was Joel Joffe, who was Jewish. There was the young Arthur Chaskelson, who was Jewish and became the Chief Justice, I think the second or third Chief Justice? First Chief Justice. Was it not Mohammed? Okay, we'll debate that later, we'll bet. But I swear he wasn't first. But anyway, Joel Joffe, Bram Fischer, Arthur Chaskelson, some Afrikaner and Jewish, they were on the defense side. Make of that what you will. That is South Africa's story, and I hope that we don't inherit and import talking points from other parts of the world when our history tells us plurality, dialogue, and human rights belong to all of us and ought to be pursued by all of us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I hope you enjoy.
Sorry, just a note that Francesca does need to leave now. You can clap her out, guys. Let's clap her out. Let's clap her out. Thank you, Francesca. We'll see her on Saturday, yes. Okay, so very quickly, thank you to our UN Special Rapporteur, Francesca Albanese, to our moderator, Redi Tlabi, to this audience, to everybody in this room who showed up for this conversation. I think it has challenged us to recognize the harm that we have all become complicit in. And hopefully it has also challenged us to imagine the economy of the future as well. Sorry, guys, if you can all just remain seated just for 1 minute. Thank you. Okay. So we really want to keep the conversation going. We want to keep the momentum going. We want to turn, the inspiration that we may have drawn from today into action. So we really hope that we will see many of you again, and that these conversations filter back to your various communities and homes. And then just a reminder that the annual lecture will be taking place on Saturday at 3 p.m. for those who have registered to attend in person, but there will also be an online streaming link to watch, virtually wherever you are. Okay, and then just a note that finger foods are being served downstairs in the canteen. And again, thank you all for joining us.